This was never meant to be revealed in its original form. The Kiai you think you know, that loud shout in modern karate, is a diluted fragment of something far more dangerous. Something deliberately suppressed inside the inner circles of Okinawan warriors who understood one brutal truth. Strength is not built, it is unlocked. Instantly, if you know how to break your own limits, and yes, they hit it for a reason. Because a human who can suddenly access double their normal force becomes unpredictable, uncontrollable, and in the wrong hands, destructive. Right now, you are not weak because your muscles are small. You are limited because your brain is holding you back. Every movement you make is filtered through a system designed to protect you from injury. Your nervous system applies invisible brakes, reducing how much force you can produce, how fast you can react, how fully you can commit. You feel this every day. That hesitation, that split-second delay before action, that sense that something inside you is holding back, even when you try your hardest. I am telling you this directly, as someone who has studied both neuroscience and ancient combat systems. Your strength is being suppressed on purpose by your own biology. Your brain does not trust you with full power. It locks it away behind safety mechanisms to prevent damage to your joints, your tendons, your structure. But the original Kiai breath was designed to override that system. Not gradually, not safely, but instantly. It was a trigger, a switch that forces your body to bypass hesitation and release a surge of power in a single moment. This is not theory. This is a controlled breach of your own neurological limits. And now, the question becomes uncomfortable. If your limits are not real, if they are imposed, then what are you actually capable of when those limits are removed? Now we move into what they never explained, the mechanism behind the illusion. Because once you see this clearly, you stop chasing strength and start controlling it. Inside your body, there's a system constantly deciding how powerful you are allowed to be in any given moment. And at the center of that system sits a critical pathway known in modern neuroscience as the vagus nerve, a deep control line that regulates whether you stay calm, freeze under pressure, or explode into action. Most of your life, this system keeps you in a restrained state, conserving energy, limiting output, and slowing reaction time. It feels normal, but it is actually a controlled suppression. The Okinawan masters did not have the scientific language, but they understood the effect. They discovered that through a very specific pattern of breath, pressure, and sound, they could interrupt this control system. When you perform a true Kiai breath, you create a sudden surge of intra-abdominal pressure by compressing the diaphragm downward while locking the core and stabilizing the rib cage. This pressure acts like an internal shock wave, sending a signal through your nervous system that overrides inhibition for a brief moment. At the same time, the explosive exhale combined with sound creates a full-body contraction pattern that forces your system to recruit high-threshold motor units, the powerful muscle fibers normally reserved for emergencies. This is the same mechanism that allows people to display extreme strength in life-or-death situations, except here it is intentional, it is controlled, it is trained. Think of your body like a machine with a limiter installed. Under normal conditions, you never reach maximum output because the system prevents it. The Kiai breath is a violent but precise way of temporarily disabling that limiter. For a fraction of a second, the brakes are gone, and everything engages at once. But this is where it becomes dangerous, because when you remove the limiter, you also remove protection. And if you do not control it, your own body becomes the thing you are fighting against. Now you are going to execute the protocol, and this is where most people fail. Not because it is complicated, but because they ignore the precision required to activate the system. This is not breathing for relaxation. This is a controlled neural trigger. Every detail matters. If even one element is off, the effect disappears completely. So you do not rush this. You follow it exactly. First, your structure. You align your body so that force can be contained and transferred without leaking. Your spine is upright, not rigid, but stacked. Your head is balanced, your pelvis slightly tucked, your shoulders relaxed. This creates a vertical channel inside your body. Without this alignment, pressure escapes, and the system never activates. Most people skip this and wonder why nothing happens. 9. Now the inhale. You draw the air deep into your lower abdomen, not your chest. Your belly expands forward to the sides, even slightly into your lower back. You are filling your torso like a sealed container. This is diaphragmatic loading, but listen carefully. The inhale is not the goal. It is preparation. Everything depends on what happens next. At the peak of the inhale, you compress. Not slowly, not gently, instantly. Your diaphragm pushes down, your abdominal wall tightens, your pelvic floor lifts, your ribcage locks. This creates intense internal pressure, like compressing a spring inside your body. The key here is speed. If the compression is slow, your nervous system does not respond. It must feel like a snap, a sudden internal command. Now the release. You explode the air out with a sharp Kiai sound, but the sound does not come from your throat. It comes from your core. At the exact same moment, your entire body contracts, fists tighten, jaw locks, core fires. This is one synchronized event. Breath, sound, tension, all at once. If done correctly, you will feel a brief surge, a shock-like activation where your body responds instantly, without hesitation. That is the signal. That is the system turning on. Now you take the technique out of stillness and into motion, and this is where it becomes real. Where it stops being a controlled drill and starts becoming a weapon. Because the truth is simple and brutal. Kiai breathing was never designed for practice. It was designed for impact. If you separate it from movement, you destroy its purpose. The power does not exist in the breath alone. It exists in the exact moment the breath collides with action. Timing is everything. If you activate too early, the energy dissipates before anything happens. Too late, and your body has already moved without full power. The correct moment is the instant of contact, the exact fraction of a second where force transfers from your body into the target. That is when the system must fire. Not before, not after, during. You begin your movement relaxed. This is critical. No tension, no stiffness, just speed and direction. Then, at the moment of impact, you trigger everything at once. The compression, the contraction, the explosive exhale with the Kiai sound. This creates a sudden spike in force. Not gradual, not predictable, but explosive. Your body goes from zero to maximum output in a split second, and that shock is what creates disproportionate power. But there is another layer most people never realize. The sound itself affects your opponent. A sharp, sudden Kiai can trigger the brain startle reflex, a rapid, defensive reaction linked to the amygdala. In that instant, their system hesitates. Their reaction slows. While they process the threat, you have already completed your action. This is not just strength. This is disruption. At the same time, your own body releases a surge of adrenaline. But because it is synchronized and controlled, it sharpens you instead of overwhelming you. You are not panicking. You are focused, precise, immediate. And this is the shift. You are no longer just generating force. You are controlling timing, reaction, and perception at the same time. Now the change begins to move beneath the surface, and this is where most people underestimate what they are doing. Because this is not just a technique you perform in isolated moments. It is a pattern your nervous system starts to remember, repeat, and eventually adopt as a new baseline. The first time you trigger it correctly, you feel a surge, a sharp clarity, a moment where your body responds instantly without hesitation. That is not imagination. That is your system recognizing a new pathway. Within the first day of repeating this protocol, something subtle shifts. Your breathing becomes deeper without effort. Your posture stabilizes on its own. You react slightly faster to small changes around you. This is your nervous system recalibrating, learning that it can move between control and activation more efficiently. You are no longer stuck in passive mode. You are becoming responsive. After a week, the change becomes visible. Your movements carry more intent. When you act, there is less delay, less wasted motion. You begin to recruit more strength even without a full key AI, because your body has learned the pattern of synchronized activation. This is neural efficiency. Your system is no longer hesitating before engaging. It is starting to trust the command. By the time you reach 30 days, the shift is no longer just physical. It is behavioral. You think differently. You act faster. That internal pause that used to hold you back begins to disappear. The gap between decision and action becomes smaller and smaller. And this is where it becomes powerful, because most people never close that gap in their entire lives. But there is a hidden cost. As your system becomes better at removing its own limits, it will respond whenever you trigger it, whether the situation requires it or not. That is why control matters. Without discipline, this is not evolution. It is instability. You are no longer practicing a skill. You are changing how your body and mind operate under pressure. Now you understand why this was never openly taught in its complete form. And I need you to hear this without filtering it through comfort. This technique was not hidden because it was mystical or rare. It was hidden because it removes the very mechanism that keeps you safe from yourself. When you train key breathing at this level, you are not just gaining strength. You are learning how to bypass your own built-in limitations. And that changes everything about how you operate. You now know the structure, the mechanism, the protocol, and the progression. You know that your limits are not fixed. They are regulated. And once you experience that shift, once you feel your body respond without hesitation, you cannot pretend it does not exist. The hesitation you use to blame on weakness becomes something else entirely. It becomes a choice. This is where most people stop. Not because they cannot do it, but because they realize what it requires. Discipline, awareness, control. Because the moment you can access explosive force on command, you also carry the responsibility of when not to use it. Without that control, this is not power. It is instability. It is your body acting faster than your judgment, and that is dangerous, not just physically, but mentally. There is a reason modern systems soften this method, turned it into ritual, into performance. It is safer that way, predictable, contained. But what you have now is not that version. This is the original principle, direct and unfiltered. So this is the decision in front of you. You can ignore this, return to operating within the limits your system has already enforced. Stay in controlled, predictable, safe, Or you can train this slowly, precisely, building control before intensity, and step into a state where your actions are immediate, your focus is sharp, and your body responds without delay. Because now you know something most people never will. The limit was never your strength. The limit was the system controlling it, and now you have seen how to override it.